In this video, I would like to take a look at pointers, which are possibly one of the most confusing topics in the whole course. So, a pointer is really the address at which a variable is stored. So I'm going to declare a regular old integer called n, set its value to be 42, and then I'm going to say I've got an int star, which says it's a pointer to an integer, called pn for pointer to n. And whenever we say it's a pointer to, it's really the equivalent of saying it's the address of. Now, I can set pn equal to ampersand n. When I use an ampersand in that situation, it generates the address of n and stores the address in pn. So pn is now wherever n is stored in memory. So I'm going to start out and I'm going to say printf%d, n equals %d, and is stored at %x. %x is a code which says to print out a number in hexadecimal. So we're going to print out the address of this as a hexadecimal. And I'm going to pass the value of n, the plain old n, to print, and pn, which is the address at which it's stored. The next time, I'm going to print out exactly the same thing, but I'm going to do it in a different way. And I'm going to print out, instead of n and pn, I'm going to print out star pn. Now, star pn, star, when used in this way, is called the dereference operator. And what a dereference operator means is you go to the address stored in pn, get the value there, and return the value. And of course, the address, or the value that's stored at the address represented by pn, is of course the value of n. So it should repeat with 42 and simply print it out again. Now I know this is confusing because we use stars up there in the declaration, and it means that it's a pointer. And down here, it means we're dereferencing the pointer or pulling out the value that is stored at the address represented by the pointer. It will get easier, but it's kind of confusing when you first start. We can also dereference it, and here I'm adding 1 to it. I'm saying star pn plus plus, and I put a parenthesis around it just to make sure that it does the dereference, which means it gets the value of that stored at that address and then adds 1 onto the value. I don't want it to accidentally add a value onto the pointer or the address itself. So now I'm going to say after incrementing, n is %d and is stored at, and I'm going to print out star pn and then pn, and we should see that everything works as expected. So it starts out and says n is 42 and is stored at that hex address. The second one says n is 42 and is stored at that hex address. But the second one is using the dereference operator and pulling the value that's stored at the address where n is stored, which of course is the value of n. Then we use this line to add 1 to it, and then print it out again, and it says after incrementing, n is no longer 42, it is now 43, so it did correctly go to that address, add 1 onto the value stored there because we dereferenced it, and the actual value where n is stored has never changed. It's always the same in hex. Now, we're going to be using this to do parameter passing, because one of the tricks we're going to be taking advantage of is when I pass the address of a variable, I have where it's really stored in memory, and I can access that from any place in the program as long as I know its address by dereferencing the address and changing the value there. And we're going to see how we can use that in passing parameters back from functions. So that's a little introduction to pointers.